All right, excellent. And so Mary has turned the recorder on. You will get a copy of you'll get a link to a copy of the recording. And good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin Barrett. I am with True North Professional Development and Success Minded Leader. I am based in Seattle. I have my great friend and colleague, Mary Hambleton from Soul Canyon Training and Development. We were discussing a little bit earlier. We are on our 5th year of these lunch and learns every month on the first Wednesday of the month. I'm really excited about today because we have a great follow-up topic to a lunch and learn that we did last fall that I did on branding and building your brand. And so we're going to have a little panel today to discuss that, and lots of room for your questions along the way if you have them. And so Mary is going to be monitoring chat. If you do have questions, you can pop it into chat. We also have a relatively small group, so feel free to unmute if you do have questions as well. And let's see, what else do I need to tell them, Mary? I think that's it.
I think that's probably it. I'm Mary Hambleton with Soul Canyon Training and Development, located in Southern Oregon. Occasionally, I was in Central Oregon, but now I'm in Southern Oregon, but covering basically the Pacific Northwest. Kevin and I have had a lot of fun putting these lunch and learns together. If you ever have a topic that you want to talk about, please shoot us an email and we will try to work it in at least next year. But welcome.
All right. So with that, let's go ahead and kick off. I'm going to share my screen here so that you can see my PowerPoint presentation, and we'll do a little bit of an intro here, and then I'm going to introduce my panel, and they're going to share some information before we have a discussion. So we are doing Building Your Brand Part 2 today. And so here's our agenda for this hour. We're going to talk a little bit about being able to build your brand as we discussed it in our first session. So I'll give you a little bit of a recap on that. I'm going to do introductions of Laura and Sean for you, and then give them a chance to talk a little bit about their background. And then we're going to go into a couple little presentations. So Sean will do a little presentation about brand positioning statements, and then Laura is going to talk about personal branding. So we're covering off on pretty much everything here in terms of branding here. We're talking about branding your business, but we're also talking about personal branding and how those intermesh. We'll do a little bit of a discussion after that, and there'll be some opportunity for Q&A, and then we will wrap up at the end here. So let's start by talking a little bit about the recap on the lunch and learn that I did last November. I'm just going to make this very, very brief here, but we spent time in that lunch and learn really talking about what is a brand. And we talked about the fact that it has to do with perceptions and values and experiences that define how a person, product, or organization is recognized and understood by others. And that we want to really look at things like visual identity and emotional connection and the tone of the communication and the reputation that goes into that. So ultimately, it's a promise of what people can expect, distinguishing it from competitors and shaping its overall identity in the marketplace. And then all of these concepts really apply not only to individual companies, but products within companies, and they also apply to your own personal branding, how you present yourself in the world. And so I am delighted today to have two guests with us that I have known for, I guess, a little over a year now. So we have Laura Bazard, who is from Front Door Creative, and we have Sean Rourke from Runnels and Rourke. And I'll let them tell you a little bit of background on them and the expertise that they bring to it. But I just want to say that I've had the great pleasure of doing projects, I should say, with both of them. And it has been not only a really delightful engagement with both of them, but wow, the expertise. I'm just delighted to have them with you and with us today, because they've got big brains and they really, really think through some things that most of us don't have an expertise of. We were talking about this a little bit the other day, that we have our thing that we're passionate about in our business, right? But if you're especially a solopreneur, you're wearing a lot of hats and you don't have a whole lot of expertise on a lot of different things, but you have to kind of be the jack of all trades. And one great lesson that I have learned is that if I'm not an expert in it, I should hire an expert. And these two are both really great examples of that, of sharing, sharing what you need to get done with people that can actually get it done and can do it way, way better than you can do it. So with that, I'm going to stop and we'll just open up our screen here, and let's see here. I'm gonna pin both Sean and Laura here, and I'm going to let you, Laura, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, give a little bit of background on yourself, then we'll let Sean do that, and then Sean's going to pick up with his presentation.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you for hosting. I can still see your email on my screen, so I don't know if you're still sharing or not.
Okay,
but
sorry.
That's
Thank
okay.
you. I was going to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad to be here. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin is so wonderful, and he's a coach. And we had a conversation last week where I was feeling nervous about something, and he did a little coaching for me, and so I respect him so much. So my name is Laura Bizard, and my company is called Front Door Creative, and I help purpose-driven people and organizations tell their stories and connect with the audiences they want to connect with. So I'm all about opportunity. I think we all can show up and be at the front door, open the door, even if we're small, even if we're a solopreneur or a big organization. And so today I'm going to be talking about personal branding and some of the things I do with my clients. I also do a lot of work around getting products made, which also has to do with branding, coming up with a strategy for a product, getting it designed, getting it printed, telling a story through a digital or a physical deliverable. So again, happy to be here. John, you're up.
Hey everyone, it's good to meet you all. My name is Sean Rourke. I am the Rourke and Reynolds and Rourke. We are a brand creative and marketing team here in Seattle, Washington. And we similarly help individuals and organizations create, and make the world a better, smarter, and weirder place for all of that. And that'll make sense a little bit later as we go through the presentation. So thank you all for having us.
All right, excellent. Thank you both, and I appreciate the introductions. And Sean, I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away.
Cool. Let me share the screen right there. Cool. Can everybody see that? Awesome.
Yes.
So as business owners and entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and things like that, we're often told to live our brand, or be authentic in our brand. And for most of us, we can somewhat understand what that means, or we have really good customer service, so that's part of our brand, or we make really great products, that's our brand. And that's part of the way there. So what I'm going to kind of walk through today is an exercise that I do with a lot of clients where I help them create a brand positioning statement. And Kevin and I did this when we first started working together, where it is a way to very succinctly come up with what it is that makes you and makes your brand stick out from everybody else in the market. So as we kind of walk through this, there are three parts of a brand promise. What you are looking for when you're doing this is, as I try to turn the page, there we go. The brand promise really kind of allows you to sort of plant that flag. It creates the ability for you to differentiate yourself. Even if you are a roofing company and there are 5 other roofing companies around you, what makes your roofing company different than everybody else? And there's 3 parts to what you need to know. The first is yourself. The second is your customers. And the third is your competitors. And we'll get to knowing your customers and things like that in a second. most people know their competitors, and most people think they know themselves. And I say think you know yourself because a lot of times when you get into work and you get into the business of doing whatever it is that you do, we're going to use the roofing company again as an example. You know roofing. You know how to put shingles up, you know how to fix leaks, you know how to do all the kinds of things that most people would expect you to do as a company, right? What you don't know or what you may not see is how your customers perceive you as the company. And that's where I say you have to kind of know your customers. You have to take that step back and view everything through their lens. And it's an interesting sort of exercise to kind of go through because you might think, as said roofing company, that people are, they're trying to get you for what that you do, right? You do a service, you come out, you fix a problem for them, and you move on. In the how that you do the service and things like that, maybe you have better customer service than somebody, maybe you're faster, maybe you're cheaper, could be anything, right? But most people actually end up hiring you because of why you do something. Has anybody ever read Start With Why by Simon Sinek? I'm getting a couple of thumbs up and things like that in the chat. Your why creates a deep emotional connection to the customer. That is where people are actually doing business. You can have a commodity in the what, you can have a commodity in the service and how you do these kinds of things, but the why is truly why people will come back and make you into a brand versus a commodity. And commodities come and go all the time. There's no longevity there. But if you, as a solopreneur, entrepreneur, you want a brand, because brands will bring you back over and over and over again. And sometimes people will pay more for your brand than they will for some other commodity that's out there. I recently had a lot of plumbing and things like that done at my house. I had one service person come out, and I stayed with them the entire day. I got to actually know the person. They were very personable. I talked with them. They did a great job. They actually upsold me a little bit on some of the work that needed to get done. And everything was great. Ended up having a different issue at my house and immediately called the same company because I got to know the person that was coming out there. I got to understand who they were. I got to understand why they were, they were journeymen and all of the different kinds of ways that they were working. I got to understand behind the scenes, like what their thought process was and things like that. And it makes a difference to know that when I pick up that phone, I now have 3 different plumbers mobile phones for their company because I got to know these people. So I know I can call them in an emergency. I don't have to go straight to the 1-800 number. I just call them. And that's a level of service that you don't usually get, but they've created a brand around that piece of service and that ability to come out and make sure that things are done. They cost more than Steve's Plumbing down the street, but I'd rather call them because I know it's going to get done right. So that can be just an example of a little bit of a service-based sort of piece. But what does that mean when you are trying to kind of get into your brand? So when I say people, I ask them a lot of times, why do you get into business? Why are you doing what it is that you choose to do? And this is a choice, right? So why did you choose to start a company? Why did you choose to go into business? Why did you choose to become a roofer? Any of those kinds of things. What I never like to hear is to make money. Don't tell me that's why you went into business. Money is an output of the business that we do, but it is not the reason we got into business. There is some deep-seated reason why we do what we do. For instance, for me, I like helping people create their stories. I like people being able to help tell their stories. The output of that is that they make more money, hopefully, and that I make some money because I've got bills just like everybody else, kind of thing. But that's the reason that I get into it. I have done a lot of things over 25 years of this, and at the end of the day, everything comes back to storytelling for me. That's my why. That's why I do what I do, kind of thing. And for all of us, there is a why. And that part can be the hardest piece to kind of come up with. So when I say start with why, I mean literally sit down, go hike on a mountain, stare at the stars, do everything you possibly can do to think about why it is you chose in the beginning to go back and become an entrepreneur. And it's not easy. If you don't cry during this process, you probably haven't done it right. Because again, it is that deep-seated in your heart kind of reason why you are doing this. And I know of all the clients that I work with, they have very deep-seated reasons for doing these things that they do. They might want to help people with burnout, for instance. You know, I have a client that does that, and they are helping them because they have also experienced that. They know the pain and the suffering that it comes with it, and they wish that they had the things that they can offer when they were going through that. That's a very human, deep-seated connection that you don't get with everybody else. And so the first step to creating your brand is to go back and figure out why you're doing this in the first place. And then there's a very simple framework that I like to use and walk clients through. It's for, only, because, and unlike. Your for is who you're doing this for, knowing your customers, right? Only is the what and the how you do it. So is it a product? Is it a service? Is it a list of products and services? Is it an experience that you want to give people? Whatever that could be. Because is your why. So because you are doing this, like, why are you doing these kinds of things? What is that reason that you're kind of coming back to? And then the third thing that I talked about earlier is know your competitors, right? So unlike, that's your competitor and your differentiator. So all of the things that sort of Kevin was talking about in sort of differentiating your place and your part in the marketplace, understanding what your values are and things like that, all of this gets summed up in a very succinct and easy statement. And that statement then branches out for everything else that you do, but it should form the foundation for your brand. I'll give a little bit of an example for one that everybody knows, is Apple. So Apple's positioning statement looks a little bit like this. It says, for people who enjoy how technology can improve their lives, only Apple can deliver industry-changing products and services because they focus exclusively on premium customer experiences, unlike others who create singular hardware and software solutions. It can be a little generic. That's fine. You want it to be aspirational in some ways, factual, but you want it to be aspirational in a lot of ways. I will caveat this though. You'll never see Apple use this as customer-facing copy, but this is the brand mission, the brand promise that they have behind the scenes that drives everything. So how does that show up then? If you can create a succinct sentence that positions you in the marketplace against your competitors and gives you your why, how does that show up? So for Apple, this is just one of their places. I think this is actually in Oregon, maybe. This might be one of the stores in Oregon. When people think of the Apple brand, they think of the logo. But the logo is only the shorthand for the brand. The logo only means something because of that positioning statement, because of all the pieces and parts of the customer journey that Apple takes you on when you buy a piece of hardware, software, etc. from them. What is actually there is everything else. The brand is everything in. It's what the store looks like. It's what the people are wearing. It's the products on the table. It's the experience you have when you get in there. It's the experience you have when you get home. It's the customer service that you get when you need to come back. All of that makes the brand. And all of these experiences roll up to that one sentence. And it has to be consistent. That's the other thing that Apple does very, very well, is it has to be consistent. Now, why does that have to be consistent? Because brands are stories that we repeat. Through that repetition, they become truth. And we repeat them internally. We repeat them to our employees. We repeat them to our friends, families, neighbors, customers, everybody. but it has to be a consistent story all the way through. I'll give you an example. Using Apple. They were not the first to build the best products in the world in any of their categories, right? The Apple Macintosh was not the first computer to use a graphical user interface. That was a Windows machine. But Apple saw the opportunity to change the way people think about personal computers in their home. iTunes was not the first digital music service, and the iPod was not the first MP3 player. That was Dell. But iTunes challenged the way that CDs and record labels could sell music. See, Apple's why, if you go back to the piece before, they challenged the status quo. That's their whole ethos. That's their whole brand promise. And it's brought up succinctly into 2 words. Think different. It was one of their main advertising campaigns throughout the 80s, 90s, and they brought it back here recently. An art director named Craig Tomoto came up with this. And it's so powerful because it takes that sentence and even distills it even further. And it's what every employee at Apple, it's what every customer can think about when they do these kinds of things. If they use a piece of software, if they use a piece of hardware, this is what they think of when they think of Apple, that they think differently. They position all of their products against the rest of the market to look different, to run different, to be different, and they continue to challenge the status quo. That's a brand. That is a deep human connection that people can come back to. That is a rallying cry for anybody who doesn't want to conform. And they reinforce it every single time they have a chance. That's brand and brand consistency. And if it's not consistent, it's like a Ferrari with a flat tire. It looks great. It's fantastic. It's never going anywhere. So that's why you have to kind of constantly be thinking about it. And when you go back to your brand positioning, when you go through the process of doing these kinds of things, you create that gut feeling. When somebody thinks about your brand, they should have that gut feeling, that connection to everything. And so these are the kind of questions when you go through something like this. So for, only, because, and unlike. In the chat, I think Kevin's got it with him. If not, I can put it in there in a second. There's a workbook that I have, and it's not a very large workbook, but it walks you through what each of these categories mean and do, and what kind of questions to be thinking about when you pull into something like this. This is a very long process that I'm trying to distill down to like 8 to 10 minutes. So if it feels like I'm kind of glazing over a lot of kind of things, that's because we don't have all day. I do this over several weeks with clients to come up with some of this stuff. It is a process of discovery. It is a process of breaking everything that you thought down and coming up with the molecular sort of pieces that brought your brand together. And that's all I got for you. Stay weird, y'all.
So
Excellent,
Sean, it hasn't been dropped into the chat yet by Kevin, but we'll make sure that when we send the email out, we'll attach it.
I got you. And I can also put it in the chat here in just a second, I think.
I think you will have trouble doing that.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
But Mary, I'm going to email it to you, so maybe you can drop it into chat. I have not been able to get it into chat, I think, because of the way that the Zoom settings are.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Sean. Thank you so much.
And so you can find it at my website, ronaldsandrourke.com.
We'll make sure it gets attached to the email we send out. Sean.
Perfect. Cool.
Easier. That way they can pay attention to Laura, who's up next.
Yes.
All right. I'm just getting, that gave me a chance to get my tech set up. Can everybody see a tree and a green door?
Yes, indeed.
All right, good. Excellent. It's working. Thank you, Sean. That was awesome. I always love hearing you present, and you have a great way of making it very clear and clean and making us think. So thank you so much. I have a different approach. I'm going to talk about personal branding today, and I think between the two of us, hopefully you'll have some takeaways, some things to think about, and some action items should you choose to proceed. Purpose of this meeting is to give you a clearer understanding of personal branding, how it can help you, and then the first steps to take. That's my goal for what I'm about to present. So building on Sean's conversation around Apple, we talked really eloquently about the Apple ecosystem and how at every step along the way, you experience Apple's brand as a customer. I'm going to be taking a different approach talking about personal branding. So if you think about Steve Jobs, he's a person, he had a brand. He actually left Apple at one point and founded Next Computers. He brought his brand with him. Apple stayed a brand and it actually started to flag. He brought his brand with him, did other projects, and then went back to Apple. And I think it's important to think about personal branding in that context, that it's portable. Whether you change jobs, your company changes, you're looking for a transition in your life, you can take your brand with you. And so it's a little bit different from a business brand. So here's what a personal brand is. It's a story, it's your one-of-a-kind story, clearly expressed to help you show up with purpose, to connect with the right audience, and to move towards your goals with authenticity. There are lots of ways to talk about personal branding. And if you Google it, you'll see lots of different approaches, but this is my approach that I have with my clients and with myself, with my own personal brand journey. Okay, so this is a little quiz. A or B, personal brand is a performance you put on, or it's a North Star for how you show up in the world. You don't have to answer, just think to yourself. It's a North Star for how you show up in the world. It's not a performance. It's a logo, an Instagram feed, or aesthetic. Or is it a way to make your worth and value visible? E, you can see a pattern here. Is it a sales pitch, or is it an invitation to connect and collaborate? B, once again. And last, is it something that must be perfect, or is it something that can and should evolve with you? Again, B. There can be misconceptions around personal branding, so this is to just demonstrate some of the myths about personal branding. And as I talk about a couple of examples here, I think it'll become more clear. So I'm going to talk about Jane Goodall briefly. She's one of my brand heroes. She has a 60+ year career that's evolved over time, but she has a very clear mission. This is her mission, as she stated it herself. So if I think about her and I think about what makes her brand powerful and effective and helps her make change in the world, these are some of the things that I noticed: that she has an authentic presence that's consistent and humble, and her values are genuine. She's purpose-driven. She has a why that Sean mentioned. She has a reason for doing what she's doing. She's a great storyteller. If you go to her website or social media, and over the years, the books that she's written, you can really connect with her stories, her humanity. She's a leader and she's consistent. Again, touching back to what Sean mentioned, she's very consistent, even though the work she's done has evolved over time. Okay, here's an example of a brand, inauthentic brand, or a brand that's gone awry. So Ellen DeGeneres was known about resilience, kindness, authenticity. And you may remember in 2020, a scandal broke, and she was basically said that she had a toxic work environment. So she was not maintaining this brand within the people that she interacted with on a daily basis. And it was inauthentic. People began to question, was this real? And she lost, huge hit to her revenue. She lost 1 million viewers because of the toxic workplace. So brands can, if they're inauthentic or not paid attention to, a personal brand can really go awry. We can think of many things with Me Too or other mistakes that are made. So that's something to think about as you craft your own personal brand, or as you look at other personal brands out in the world. So my first takeaway exercise, I'm going to have 3 presentation, is just to find 1 to 3 brand heroes of your own. They might be in your field, in your profession. They might be somebody you in pop culture. Study their story and think about their values and their presence. Follow them on social media and see what they say, and get inspired. The idea isn't to copy, but to be inspired by how other people are showing up with their personal brands. Okay, so next we're going to talk about authenticity. So I gave you the Ellen example of when authenticity becomes inauthenticity. It's a foundation of a meaningful personal brand. It's about trust and alignment between who you are, what you value, and how you show up in the world. And it doesn't mean you have to share everything, but you show up in a way that's real, consistent, and true to your current self. So authenticity, I'm going to give you a little framework for how I like to think about it. So I love a Venn diagram. So of course I have to share a Venn diagram. This is an exercise that I do with my clients often. And I call it the authenticity Venn diagram, where you can map your story. So you can see the yellow circle is your work, your professional life, your business. If you're looking for a job, that can be up there. It could also be something like a networking group, a chamber of commerce interaction. How do you show up in that part of your life? Of course, in the center is you. I forgot to say that. In the center is you. So this is all the three kind of pillars or overlaps for who you are as a person and a brand. Your community. How do you show up for in your PTA, your volunteering, your community garden that you spend time in, your church? What does that audience say about you? What do they think about you? How do you show up there? And of course, yourself, your family, and your friends, your personal life. These things are not in silos. These things overlap. And you see where I have the 1, 2, 3. These are the overlaps. That's where you can find stories. For example, a story that I would tell about myself is in the last few years, I became very into gardening. And because I became into gardening and growing food, I got involved in the local farmers market. And I'm now the president of the board of local farmers market. That's a passion that I have and an excitement about farming. And then because I was involved in that farmers market, I met somebody who invited me to join the networking group where I met Kevin. And that's why I joined that group, because I knew that person. And now I've gotten clients through that group. So you can see the connection and the story that can come from thinking about these 3 sections. You can also set goals. You can say, I'm doing great in my work life, but like I set a goal for myself this year, I wanted to connect more with my family and friends. I wanted to spend more time with them and make sure that I saw them in person, even if they live far away. So you can kind of think about how these things cross-pollinate, cross-fertilize, and think about your why. This is, again, back to what Sean was saying about the why and your purpose. This is who you are and where you are, and this might help you develop your why of how you show up in each of these areas. So takeaway exercise number 2 is to map your story, to reflect on your own authenticity. How do you show up as a whole person? To look for opportunities there, and then share that purpose with your audience in any of those 3 areas, or a new audience that you might want to find. And then the third section I'm going to talk about, excuse me, I have a sore throat, is finding your superpower. So Sean talked about competition. There are many people doing many things, but we're all unique and we all have a superpower. So to me, developing your personal brand and sharing your personal brand is learning about yourself and what your strengths are, what your superpowers are. So something that you're known for and something that creates real value for others. So let's see, how are we doing on time? I think we have a little time to do a little bit of this work here. If everybody has a sheet of paper, if you'd like to participate or something to jot down, you won't be sharing this. This is just for you to do for yourself. Grab a piece of paper, and on one side of the piece of paper, jot down 5 to 10 words that describe how you see yourself and your strengths. So thinking about work, family, community, what's something that you're proud of, or how you see yourself. I'm just going to give maybe a minute or so to do this.
Sounds good.
When you feel like you have a few, look up so I can see that you're done. All right, so I'm going to get vulnerable and share. I did this exercise 2 years ago, and then I just did it again recently, and I'm going to share just for an example. my words, which are here. So I see myself as creative, intense, passionate, idealistic, open, helpful, curious, and loyal. This is how I see myself. I'm not thinking here about how others see me. And I'm not putting a bunch of self-critical words in there either, which I could certainly list, but this is about we're looking for our superpower here. Okay, so on the other side of the paper, I would like you to list 5 to 10 words that describe how you think others see you and your strengths. So again, what work, family, community, what do people come and ask you about? What do people give you kudos for, thank you for? Again, 5 to 10 words. You're not going to share this. This is just for your own reflection. And again, I'm going to give you 1 to 2 minutes on this one. This is where we start to think about our audience. In marketing and branding, our audience is really important. It's how people perceive of our brand. And so this is how we start to think about our personal brand and learn about this. And how often do we really ask people what they think about us directly, right? That's something that we don't typically do in life, but there might be a disconnect with how people see us and how we see ourselves. Some people might see a superpower that we don't even see in ourselves. So this is part of the work in personal branding. So again, sharing my own, just for example purposes here. So I think other people see me as friendly, creative, curious, emotional, caring, organized, fun, and passionate. It's a little different from how I see myself. So the reflection here is, where do these things overlap? Where do they not match up? What does that tell you? This is something that you can think about later. But looking at the comparison and thinking about, I might feel intense on the inside, but that might show up as emotional to other people. Okay, here's my comparison. So these are the 2 columns that hopefully you have something like this. So I can see some overlap here. I think people probably both see me as creative and passionate, but I did put, I might feel disorganized sometimes, but I think people might think of me as organized as an example of where a difference that what I might see there. Okay. So the next one is to ask for feedback. So this is where you really get vulnerable and you ask for feedback and you learn from your audience. So I recommend that people have an advisory board. Think of 3 to 5 people in your life. And again, from each of those 3 pillars, your family, your community, and your work, who you trust to give you honest feedback. You know, they'll be nice to you, but they'll also be honest with you. And make those people your advisory board, just like Apple probably, has an advisory board, or any brand has an advisory board. You can do this as a personal brand as well. And then ask them to share 5 words that describe you. Don't give them a lot of coaching. Don't tell them what you said. Think about yourself, but just ask them for 5 words. I do that I use SurveyMonkey, but this can be in person. You can do it anonymously or not anonymously, but just ask them for 5 words. It's pretty easy ask. People like helping. And then compare these words with your self-analysis and hypothesis words. So the self-analysis is how you see yourself. Hypothesis is how you think others see you. And look at where you think those line up and where they don't. You'll learn something. I guarantee you'll learn something. Something will surprise you. And then look for 3 power words that can be part of your story that you tell, that you use in your personal brand. So that's a takeaway exercise to do later, but I'm going to, again, get vulnerable here and share my own. So this is the data that I collected. I had 15 people respond to the survey for, I think it was 75 words. And then I took those words and I put them into ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT to organize them by trait groups and rank them. So you can see here, if you're data driven, you might like this. So people have different words for things that might be similar. So that's where the group is helpful. Thoughtful and caring, those are pretty similar, for example, grouping them together. So that was my top trait. My next one was creativity. And again, these things all are related. And then these three, curiosity and learning, drive and motivation, and organization and precision, were equal, number 3. And then my professionalism was the least with 8. No one said fun. I had fun on my list of how I thought other people saw me. So I learned something there. But maybe I'm not as fun as I hope I am. Or maybe that wasn't as important as the top thing. So that could be a learning point for me. Maybe I need to be a little bit more fun, or maybe I need to readjust how I see myself. So there's an opportunity to adjust my brand there. So this is a very data-oriented chart. You can also create a word cloud. So the top 3, I like the idea of 3 power words. So mine were creative, thoughtful, and curious. I'm pretty happy with that. That's pretty much how I see myself. Yeah, this is something to reflect on and learn about, and also to, again, I did this about 2 years ago, when I was taking a class in content strategy, and doing it again with different people. And I have new people I would ask on my advisory board. I learned some different things. So hopefully this is helpful. Again, this is something that I'm scratching the surface here only, but it's the idea of really trying to understand yourself and how people see you, and then that can become quite powerful. So quick recap, the world is changing, jobs are changing, roles are changing. Now is the time to think about how you show up in the world and your personal brand. And separate from your company where you might work, those things can overlap, but that is portable, and you're the CEO of your own life. So a personal brand can help you reconnect with your core, navigate transitions, and tell your story, opening doors to new opportunities. So that is it.
Thank you so much, Laura. That is absolutely awesome. And knowing you, I can see where those 3 words are all the time. So fantastic. Really, really appreciate that. And I want to share something with you, Laura, as well. So I went through a very similar exercise, actually, not so long ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, with a career coach. And I want to share with you kind of the results of that so you can see. So let's see here. I got to get to it. Where is it? Kevin. I see it. There it is. So I actually had a career coach that put me through a very similar exercise to you, and asked me to kind of come up with, in 10 words or less, kind of come up with, and I actually think I have a little bit more than 10, but what is my brand? What do I represent? And I went through a very similar exercise, gathering some information from myself, but also gathering information from other people. And this is what it is. And I actually have this on my LinkedIn. My career coach actually challenged me to put that on there. If that's your brand, then put it on there. And this is something that I go back to on a very regular basis to look at that and go, is that what I am? Is that what I'm doing? Is that how I represent myself? Right. And am I living up to that? Because it is somewhat aspirational as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. I think that's a really awesome thing that you've done there. And so Sean and Laura, I want to just spend a little bit of time and chat a little bit about some things here, and just kind of see where your thought process is on a couple of other things. So I wonder if you could answer for me, where do you think, what's the biggest mistake that people make about their branding?
I can go first. Sean, would you like to go first?
Go for it.
Okay. I think that, and I think both of us touched on it, people think a brand is a logo or a social media feed, or it's a resume, or that it's the little component, rather than it's that storytelling piece that I think Sean and I both agree on. It's really getting to the core of your why from Sean's perspective, the map that I showed, starting there. Because I hear people all the time, oh my gosh, I need help with my social media. Well, what are you trying to accomplish with it? Why do you even exist? I think that's kind of freeing to not feel like you're behind on all these little elements and to think more about your strategy.
Yeah,
That's an interesting one because I think a lot of times people go, well, I have to do social media because everybody's doing social media. If I
Right.
don't do the social media, then what am I doing? So I love that. Sean.
well, I was going to kind of piggyback on that a little bit too. Is remember that social media is nothing but advertising. You know, even the ones that make the advertising look really slick, that they're telling their story or that they're just trying to get people to, follow them or they're doing that kind of thing. They're either doing one of two things. They're either entertaining as a form of their content, and that is their product that they're giving you, or you're advertising your business. That is pretty much the only two uses of social media in 2025. And so, when people, I get the same sort of thing. It's, oh my gosh, we need to do something with social media, and it's okay. Well, who are you talking to on social media, and why? And are they even there, kind of thing. And I think that gets back to a lot of the kinds of things, when the biggest mistake that I see a lot of people make with their brand is it. I kind of succinctly look at it is a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Mm.
It's that gut feeling, the reputation. It's how people think about you. So when you put it in that sort of perspective, everything else becomes parts of a brand and not this overwhelming, oh my gosh, we're so far behind, we can't do this thing. You gotta think about it in the totality of everything that you're doing, personal and professional.
And Sean, Laura mentioned that kind of vulnerability piece of that. Do you see that as well for a company branding as well? That there has to be kind of a vulnerability in there in terms of determining what a company's brand is or a product brand is.
The best companies have that vulnerability to them, because they know that at some point in time they're going to make a mistake. And the companies that have a solid brand behind them will find that their customers and things like that will stick around through a mistake much more than anybody who's just trying to sort of make a buck, for those commodities and things that I was talking about earlier. So, yeah, it's as vulnerable as a company can be. It has to be, that's where the authenticity sort of comes into play. Um,
Mhm.
and especially for solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, where a lot of us are the brand at first, in some ways, those two lines blur a lot more because it is on your shoulders to kind of carry everything.
Yeah.
Kevin, can
I
I
would
jump
also
in
add
there?
to that. Oh,
I was just going to jump in there that one of the things that I think most entrepreneurs don't recognize is whether you're intentionally branding or not, you're branding. So people pay attention to how you show up. So it's best that you are intentional and doing it proactively.
that's a great point. I wanted to just also kind of, this is related, adjacent to what was just being talked about here, which is that in the world of I think authenticity, vulnerability, humanity, um, people can see those things. And so that can really help you stand out, if you um, feel authentic, human, and vulnerable, a brand or or a personal brand or a business brand.
Yeah. Very good. Well, we have a few minutes here for any other questions. So if any of you have questions for either Sean or for Laura, feel free to unmute and ask your question.
I have one.
Yeah, go
I,
for it.
I was just wondering, so if I really like the word where you describe yourself and have your advisory board describe you, if there's a disconnect, but you want to stay authentic, you mentioned, Laura, adjusting your brand, but like you want to stay authentic and not be like, oh, I need to be more fun, but really I'm not a fun person, right? You don't want to fake it. So how
Right.
do you, what do you mean by adjusting your brand? Like I'm actually like kind of not fun, you know what I mean? So I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
I think that's a great question, everyone. This is my sister, Susanna, who is a teacher and she supports people with learning differences. That's her mission. So thank you for the question. It's deep work. I don't think there's a really clear answer to that. Of course, we have a short presentation here, but it's thinking about, so if you see a disconnect, it could be an opportunity. It could be someone says something about you. You see someone saying often, frequently, like, let's say that I'm organized. Well, I don't always feel super organized, but a lot of people said I was organized. So I'm thinking I should really lean into that and promote that, right? Or it could be, I kind of wish people thought I was fun. I think people might think I'm fun, but they didn't say I was fun. Maybe does that matter? Maybe that's not important to my brand. Maybe that's something that's more, with my family and that sort of thing. Or is there an opportunity that I'm missing by not implementing a little bit more whimsy or fun in what I'm talking about, in how I'm sharing my story? Can I tell a story that's true to myself, but also shows that feature or trait? So that's something with coaching, is something that we would work on. But anytime there's a disconnect, it's just an opportunity for learning and adjusting and seeing oneself. It's similar to when, a company creates a movie and they show it to a focus group and everyone's like, I hate the ending. Well, they may or may not change the ending, but it gives them something to understand what their audience really is thinking. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Yep, more of like a workshop tool rather than major overhaul. Thank you.
And Laura, I want to piggyback on that a little bit and maybe have Sean chime in as well, because I think one of the mistakes that I see people make is that they try to make their brand staid, right? That it's the same all the time, but in reality, companies change, people change. What is your brand now may not be your brand 2 years from now. Do you agree with that? How do you feel about that?
For Sean or for me? Go ahead, Sean.
Either one.
You take it. Yeah.
Okay. The brand does evolve with the times as well, as I would say. Any brand that's been around for 10, 15, 20 plus years kind of thing is going to evolve with the society that's around it and the culture that it's built in too. And so I think it's okay for it to evolve as you go. The why probably never changes. The how and the what, or maybe even how it's expressed, right? Logos get changed all the time. Those things can change. But, and certainly I'll use Apple again, but the Apple logo has changed and gone through different design trends and things like that throughout its time, but it's never fully changed as a logo, and the meaning behind the logo and things like that has never changed. And so that's okay to sort of, like I said in my kind of piece, it's a process of discovery. And discovery happens all the time as you grow and you change and things like that. So
yeah,
there's nothing wrong with it.
I guess one of the things that I think about is, I used to work for a company that was a subsidiary of IBM, and IBM's brand was, we're the experts. We're going to tell you how to do it. You don't have to think about it because we've got all the answers, right? And that worked really well for a while. And in large part because Apple kind of came in there and Microsoft came in there and said, no, we'll do it the way you want to do it. And we'll adapt to that. And IBM kind of stayed with we're the experts and we're going to tell you how to do it, to the point where it was damaging to IBM. It actually hurt the company very badly that they kind of stuck with that. So,
I mean, I would say from a personal brand perspective, I think that continuous improvement and growth mindset are really important. I think a lot of people start to think about their personal brand when they're experiencing transitions, such as a job loss, their kid going to college, starting a business, and it can be and they can feel like they don't know their why, or their why is really changed. So I think it's exciting to feel like you're never locked into something. You have clarity, you're consistent, you audit things, you look at them, you ask for feedback, but it's not a fixed mindset, it's a growth mindset.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. All right, I think we have time for maybe one more question. Does anybody else have another question for Laura or for Sean?
I have a question. My name's Olivia. I am a medical librarian, and I also work at medical school as a teacher. So I'm not here as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, I like that word. I'm so interested in personal branding and branding in general, and I love these exercises that you gave us, Laura. I just wondered, how can I brainstorm different ways to actually, like, let's say I come up with my personal brand. How do I best utilize it? If I'm not, I don't own a business. I work for, a hospital. What kinds of strategies can I use to utilize a brand that I create for myself?
Well, I think that exercise, which is the authenticity map, which has the three overlapping circles, it's really about what goals do you want to set for those areas of your life? Where do you want to go? Do you want to have a different job? Do you want to make more money? Do you want to make new connections and create new opportunities? What are your goals? And then how can who you are and how you show up in your brand support those goals? So everybody wants to, not everybody, but everybody in this call wants to grow and level up and get create new opportunities for themselves. So an artist might want to get in more galleries. Someone at a company might be stuck in mid-level management and want to become, change departments or become an upper level manager. That's all branding. And again, it's portable. Someone loses their job. If you've done this work, you know what you're looking for when you look for a new job, for example. So it's not limited to somebody who's an entrepreneur or a solopreneur. I think the principles apply in all those categories.
Thank you.
Great question, Olivia.
I'd jump into it as well, just to add on. When I interview people at jobs or things like that too, I always ask them, tell me a story about something, and whatever the kind of thing is. Tell me about a time when you had to blank, kind of thing. And I've got several pages of types of questions and things that I can ask somebody, kind of based around the role. And what you're doing in telling those stories and doing some of the exercises that Laura is talking about and things is you're coming up with these examples that are very easy to then just kind of bring up and just talk about. It just starts to help you flow so well. And so that's why, the exercises and things that she does and the way the Venn diagram works and stuff is so great, because now all of a sudden, these stories to kind of work through. So if you're kind of going to do, if you're working, towards tenureship or things like that, right? There's a lot of stuff for tenureship you have to do. It's a very long I used to work at college and taught as well. So it's a ton of products and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of the ways that you can kind of really kind of pitch yourself in a way, using those stories and using those exercises. So it works in a lot of different ways.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, we're right towards the end. I see Laura put her contact information in. Maybe Sean, you can do the same in case people want to reach out to you, get a hold of you and get more information. But I hope everybody who's on the call really enjoyed it. I think these guys are really amazing people, and very happy to have had them with us today. I do want to mention just very quickly that we do have a class that is coming up. I believe it's next Tuesday from 9 to noon, Excel Essentials. You can go either to Mary's website, soulcanyon.com/training webinars, or to mine, truenorthskills.com/events, and sign up for that if that works for you, if that's something that is of interest to you. It's a great class, one of our favorites. So, Mary, anything else before we wrap up today?
Just join us June 4th. As we will be doing our next Lunch and Learn.
Oh yeah.
Building your emotional intelligence. And this is one of my favorite classes that we teach and talk about, because I think the world really needs some emotionally intelligent people right now.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, we will reach out to y'all with the link to the video for today. And thank you all for joining us. We hope you got a lot out of it. And feel free to reach out to Laura and to Sean.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Thanks
y'all.
Thanks so much.
Everybody, thanks for
Bye.
coming.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.